to be up here on the other side of the chairs. I've sat in your place before. It's way brighter up here, but the beer's just as good. So thanks for you all for coming. Thanks to Wade and Doris for inviting me. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you about the philosophy of the good place. Now, I know that this is nerd night, and when you think of nerds, you often think of scientists or creators or something really cool. Whereas I'm what you might call a philosophy nerd. We still wear glasses, but instead of curing diseases or inventing cool things, we just bore people at parties. But no, philosophy is a really important field, and thankfully a number of universities still teach it. Has anyone here actually studied philosophy before? Raise your hand if you've studied philosophy before. Cool, well, I look forward to arguing with you later on tonight. Before I get started, a little bit about me. I am doing my PhD in philosophy, without boring you with the full 106,000 words of my thesis, it's essentially a...
Wrong, cut it down.
It's what my supervisor said, it's so weird. It's essentially a melding of science and philosophy to make a plan for thinking and acting in the world in a way that is environmentally sustainable. But thank you. But for both of our sakes, I'm not actually talking about my thesis tonight. I'm going to be talking about what I do after I've been writing philosophy all day. What do? I watch TV. And one show that I'm loving at the moment is The Good Place. Now, I assume most of you didn't come here specifically to listen to me tonight, so raise your hand if you've actually seen The Good Place. Whoa! I probably don't need to be up here then. No, for those of you who haven't seen The Good Place, it's actually a really simple premise, and I'll run through it now. So, enter The Good Place. It's a sort of non-denominational afterlife. It's not strictly heaven, it's more of just a next phase of your existence in the universe if you were a good person. Now, the show focuses on 6 main characters: Michael, the angel or architect, whatever you want to call it, of the neighborhood in which the show is set. There's Janet, a butler-like being, still not really sure on that one.
Not a robot.
Not a robot. There's Tahani, a wealthy socialite. Jason, a monk or a DJ from Florida, depending on which season you're up to. Chidi, a professor of moral philosophy, hint. And then there's Eleanor, who is the sort of de facto main character of the show. Now, the show focuses on Eleanor because although she wakes up in the good place, she knows that she's not supposed to be there. And we learn through a series of hilarious flashbacks to her time on Earth that she was actually a really terrible person. Now, I say terrible, it's not like she was Thanos or anything. She was just really selfish and rude and inconsiderate. Less of a supervillain and more of just a One Nation voter. Either way, she is not supposed to be in the good place. And it's her trying to not get caught and trying to become a good enough person to stay there that fuels much of the dramatic tension in the show. Now, thinking about this premise, we actually already have some really cool philosophical ideas. The first one is, wait for it, metaphysics. Now, metaphysics is one of the 5 branches of philosophy. Is this too loud, by the way?
No, it's not.
Sweet. Metaphysics is one of the 5 branches of philosophy. The other ones are ethics, aesthetics, epistemology, and logic. Metaphysics was coined by Greek philosopher Aristotle, who called it the science which takes up the theory of being as being and what to be means. So essentially, metaphysics is the study of being. Metaphysics asks, what is everything? In fact, you've probably all done metaphysics before without even knowing it. Metaphysics is when you're really cooked and you're asking your friends amazing questions like, what's the meaning of the universe? Why am I here? Where am I? That's metaphysics. And the show does an awesome job of describing metaphysics, talking about really interesting ideas like what happens after you die, what is the meaning of life, and mortality, or at least how the fear of retribution frames how we live our life. Now, one of my favourite metaphysical ideas they bring up on the show is this idea called Jeremy Bearimy. It's the idea that time is not a straight line and it doesn't have a start or an end. It just kind of loops around and goes here and there and goes fast and slow. And when you look at all of those loops from above, it kind of spells out Jeremy Bearimy in cursive handwriting. This sounds silly, but it's actually really educational. And it tells us a lot about time from both a philosophical, and a scientific perspective. I like that. Scientifically, we don't really know what time is. For classical science, time wasn't even a consideration. Newton's laws of mechanics theorized that any process was reversible, which meant time was completely irrelevant. And then with thermodynamics, we get the arrow of time, and with relativity, the three dimensions of space are connected to time, and so time becomes part of the fabric of the entire universe. But even then, we still don't know any more about what time actually is, other than that time passes, and that we experience it passing. And so that's what Jeremy Beremy does. It doesn't try to explain cosmological time as it actually is, and just explains time phenomenologically, or time as it is experienced. In saying this, it's not completely subjective, and it still does meet up with some science. So, for classical physics, the vacuum, which makes up most of the universe, is empty and flat. Whereas in contemporary physics, if you look at this really cool GIF, in contemporary physics, the vacuum is actually a noisy sea of random quantum fluctuations. And this means that the basic fabric of the universe is actually jumping around wildly. And so if time and space are part of the same thing, and the fabric of space and time is always jumping around, then it makes sense that someone's experience of navigating this wildly fluctuating time could be described by what we see in Jeremy Beremy. Now, the other thing about Jeremy Beremy that's educational is that it's a loop. Now, this doesn't actually meet up with our experience of time, which for the most part is unidirectional and linear. I'll give you an example. This beer is full. Now the beer is empty. Time is a straight line. Sorry. Whereas if we take a ecological philosophical view and go from single organisms, me, to groups of organisms, or in fact entire systems, we see that time is not linear, it's actually cyclical. Going back to the beer example, I drink the beer and then I die, hopefully not immediately. My body is buried, it's broken down by microorganisms such as yeast, which goes into making beer, which is then drank by somebody else. So ecologically, time is cyclical. So although this looks really silly, it actually goes quite far to explain time from both a philosophical and a scientific perspective. Who would have figured? Now, what does this slide say? Ah, yes. So a different branch of philosophy is actually the star of the show, which is ethics. So as most of you apparently know, when Eleanor wakes up in the good place and realizes that she's not supposed to be there, she makes a plan to become a good enough person to stay in the good place. Thanks, Wade. How is one determined worthy of the good place? It's a point system. So during your time on Earth, all of your actions are assigned a positive or a negative value, depending on how much good or bad they put into the universe. You're reading those? They're pretty good. Now this is actually another really interesting piece of metaphysics, which is what we call process metaphysics. So in process metaphysics, every piece of matter in the universe is always moving, and it's always interacting with the matter around it, which means that the vibration of any, or the movement of any one piece of matter impacts the matter around that, and around that, and around that, across the entire universe, like a universal domino effect. But it's probably better described as a universal butterfly effect. Is everyone here familiar with the butterfly effect? Mm-hmm. Not the terrible Ashton Kutcher film, the theory that butterfly flaps its wings, hurricane, other stuff. Yeah, you all get it. So in process metaphysics, the butterfly effect is essentially the cosmological metaphysical rule that matter is always influencing other matter. Now, in the point system, what this means is that your actions impact the people around you. And this is really cool because instead of some cosmological god to judge your actions or to tell you what to do, everyone is given their lot, and it's the decisions they make that determine their moral worth. Now, philosophically, this is somewhere between Aristotle's ethics and existentialism. So Aristotle wrote on the idea of eudaimonia, which is essentially the idea that you work your entire life to be the best whatever you are that you can be. In Greek society, everyone was defined by their job. So Aristotle says if you're a baker, you try to be the best baker. If you're a soldier, then you try to be the best soldier. Hell, if you're a drug dealer, then Aristotle would say you try to be the best drug dealer that you can be. But this is less about skill in the workplace, which in Greek was techne, and instead Aristotle uses the Greek word episteme, which translates as moral skill, or living a good life. So Aristotle says, like you practice any other skill, you can practice moral skill. And it's a sort of process of aspiration. And Aristotle says that your success, your how well you've reached eudaimonia, can only be determined on your deathbed. So it kind of sets up life to be like a game of darts. So with every throw, with every action in your life, you aim at the centre of the dartboard, moral good. And you throw as best you can. You aim and you throw and you practice, and you don't always hit right where you want to, but that's okay, because the quality of your game is judged by tallying the score at the end. If you've hit the centre often enough, congratulations, you've reached eudaimonia. Now, the show balances this with the ideas of existentialism, which is most closely associated with philosopher Hunks, Nietzsche, and Mesa. Now, existentialism essentially says that everyone is born a blank slate with free will, and it's with the choices that you make throughout your life, you create yourself. So every action or every decision, good and bad, is written out onto your essence or your soul or your Tinder profile, whatever you want to call it. But the idea is that you make yourself, and only you are responsible for your actions. So this point system sounds pretty good, right? You have free will, and you just choose to do good stuff a lot of the time. Well, maybe not, because the idea at the heart of the point system is utilitarianism. So utilitarianism, essentially, mostly attributed to Jeremy Bentham, essentially says that pleasure is the absence of pain. And so in this way, good and bad become really simplified concepts. Good means that you give someone pleasure. Bad means that you cause someone pain. And the moral goodness of your actions are determined if the sum of the outcomes means more pleasure for more people than pain. It's the kind of argument that's used to justify, for example, going back in time and killing Hitler as a baby. Small amount of pain, lots of good, lots of pleasure in the future. But the most famous example of utilitarianism is the trolley problem. So in the trolley problem, you're in control of a trolley or a tram or a train, and it's heading towards 5 people who can't hear the train or were tied to the tracks by some sort of silent film villain. The why doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're in control and you can choose to divert the train to a different track. But on that track is one person. So you essentially have to choose to kill a person in order to save 5 others. Utilitarianism says that this is the morally correct decision to make. But for everyone else, we're thinking, whoa, I didn't agree to kill anyone. Out of curiosity, I can't quite see anyone, so it makes a noise if you would totally kill a person to save 5 others. Yeah. And makes a noise if you would let the 5 people die.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty balanced. That's pretty good. Now, I won't go too much into the morality of the trolley problem because the show does a much better job than I could. But suffice it to say that for utilitarianism and for the point system, the goodness of your essence, or whatever you want to call it, it's judged by the amount of good or bad that you put out into the universe. More good than bad, gold star. More bad than good, you're going to hell. Now, the source of much of the philosophy in the show is this Chidi character, who, as I said, is a professor of moral philosophy. Now, Chidi is a deontologist, which means he follows the work of Immanuel Kant. Kant? I don't know, it's German. Now, Kant's approach is more principled, and he describes the categorical imperative, which is essentially a set of laws for living virtuously. Now, the imperative is universal, so you have to do it all of the time, no exception. It's a dismissal of utilitarianism's negotiating of morality, and instead it just says, don't do bad, don't kill, don't lie, just no bad stuff, like at all, no matter the cause. This means that you can't kill baby Hitler, and you can't even lie even if telling the truth would make someone sad. So, both philosophies leave you in a bit of a pickle, because while they say you should do good, the good that they suggest still feels a little bad. And so this is where we get to the big twist in the show. So once again, raise your hand if you haven't seen The Good Place. few of you, and raise your hand, keep your hand raised if you don't want me to ruin the twist. We're in the clear there, sweet. Twist ruined. So the big twist is, they're not actually in the good place, they're in the bad place. Surprise. Michael is actually a demon, and instead of torturing the four humans the old-fashioned way, with hot pokers and bees and stuff, he figures out that the best way to torture people is to stick a bunch of selfish people together and make them get along. Now, this is also an idea pulled from the Annals of Philosophy, from a play by Jean-Paul Sartre called No Exit, or Huis Clos in French. Now, I was going to do a French accent for this, but someone told me it would be offensive, so I won't. But the character Garcin says, "There's no need for red hot pokers. Hell is other people. Hell is other people." I'm sure anyone who's ever had to sit through a family Christmas can probably relate to this. But Michael's plan doesn't work. Instead of torturing each other, the four humans help each other. Instead of bringing all their selfishness and all their problems, they learn philosophy and they become better people. And as they improve themselves and each other, they try to understand more about the metaphysical point system for determining good and bad. And as they try to figure out how to get into the good place, they realize that no one has gotten into the good place in 500 years. It turns out that good isn't that easy to achieve. And while you might be acting morally good, your actions might have bad consequences. Taking the categorical imperative, I might tell my wife that those jeans make her look fat. I'm acting virtuously. But then she'll be sad and probably throw something at me. So I've caused her harm, and so in the point system, I lose points. The counter to this is that I lie. She's not sad anymore, but then she's walking around in ugly jeans. So either way, I've done her harm, and I lose points. I go to the bad place. Now, the thing is, maybe the point of the show actually isn't to show the strengths of moral philosophy then, but the weaknesses. To show that life is more complex than can be easily designated perfectly good or perfectly bad. And of this, Eleanor says, there should be a medium place, because life is complex. Humans are messy, and as we just found out before, actions can have infinite consequences. And so this is the cool kind of ideas that The Good Place discusses through philosophy. So what is the show trying to teach then? Is it trying to teach that hell isn't other people? Is it trying to say that existentialism has it right and that life is meaningless? Is it supporting utilitarianism, that it's okay to kill baby Hitler? Or is it in support of deontology, that you shouldn't kill anyone, especially baby Hitler? I don't think it's any of these. I don't think the point of the show is to give you answers. I think it's to make you ask questions. Questions like, how should we treat each other? What does it mean to live a good life? Not what is good, but why should we do good? So that's my takeaway from the show, that life is complex, pure good is maybe a little unattainable, and thinking back to Aristotle's eudaimonia, the best we can hope for is to aim for some version of the good, and to try to be the best whatever we are that we can be, and just hope that there isn't actually a bad place. Thank you.
Alright, if you've never been to Nerd Night before, this is what happens next. I come up on the stage and then I ask for questions from the audience and then we put Aaron on the spot. It's not always Aaron, but someone like Aaron. Alright, so, are there questions from the audience? I'm just throwing this on you. Can we have a bit of house lights, please, Rob? Thank you so much. Oh, we got right there, yeah. Can you do the French accent? It's a great question, thank you for asking that.
No, the photographer works in my office and he's French, so I don't want to piss him off.
He's Italian.
Can you do it?
Okay, so I've got a question. Are there other shows that you watch with the same keen interest around philosophy as The Good Place?
Well, no, because I spend all my time doing philosophy, I actually like to watch shows that don't contain any philosophy whatsoever. But it just so happens that The Good Place is good enough to get past that rule. If there aren't that many questions, I actually have a question for the audience. There was a factual inaccuracy in the description of my event tonight. Did anyone pick it up? a factual inaccuracy. No, sweet. I'm in the clear then. Don't worry.
It's like a super nerdy question.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's a nerd night. It's a room
Did you
full of
want to
nerds.
tell us what it was? Just because I feel like you will be disappointed if you don't.
Kind of. I kind of like the idea of people fact-checking constantly. You know, in this world, we need more people concerned with the facts. But I did say that the universe was created 4.3 billion years ago, when it was actually the solar system that was created 4.3 billion years ago. So obvious.
Great, good one. Okay. In the far back there. How do you answer the trolley question?
Well, I think it's not called the trolley question. It's called the trolley problem, and I think that gives it all away. That there's no right answer. It's a problem. You either kill someone, and so you're killing someone, or you're letting 5 people die, and you're letting 5 people die. So I think the whole point of it is not necessarily to show that there is a clear answer. It's just to make you think about, well, what is morality? What kind of good can we hope for?
I would get out of the tram, I'd run in front of it, and then I'd put a rock on the rails, and then I would just risk seriously maiming a lot of people. Maybe killing them, but that way I'm giving like a little bit of randomness to the outcome.
You're an agent of chaos, Whale.
There we go. Okay, there's another question right there. Do you have a woman to ask a question?
It doesn't have to be about philosophy. It can be about anything, like how do I tie a shoelace, or any question. I don't care.
That's a hard question. Okay, yeah, go for it.
The trolley question, I think, so your thesis is about sustainability, right?
Yeah.
So the trolley question is really important to that, because there are many nations, for example, that would really like things like nutrition and, infrastructure that are sort of inherently unsustainable. Are you on the side of sacrificing that to sustainability, or sacrificing sustainability to allow that?
I like that question. Did everyone catch that? So it's essentially setting up the world as the trolley, where there's only a finite amount of resources, tracks, if you will, and you have to make a choice whether to send the resources to one country or 5 others. And it's difficult, and I hate to say it, but it's maybe a little bit of an oversimplification, because sustainability is really complex, and this is maybe the point of my thesis, which is that it's not necessarily about simple solutions, it's not necessarily about us or them. It's actually about how we use the resources. It's technological, it's cultural, it's social, and it's political. There's finite resources, that's true, but there is definitely a way that we can all work together to share resources around. That means decreasing consumption, increasing resource efficiency, increasing land efficiency. Everyone's probably heard of the footprint problem, where at our current footprint, in Australia at least, we actually need 3 Earths. Last I checked, we don't have that many. If we were all living in the US, if the entire world was living like the US, we'd actually need 7 Earths. So it's not necessarily about decreasing population or taking it away from this person or that person. It's using the one Earth that we have more efficiently.
Cheers to decreasing consumption. Sorry, I thought about that joke the whole time. Is there any women who have questions at all? You've got one for the women, thank you.
Hi.
The question is, can ethics answer any corporate questions at all? Can it govern corporate decision making?
That's such a good question. There was a slide that I cut which was all about how utilitarianism relates to neoclassical economics, which relates to capitalism, which is then, corporations. For those of you who don't know, the guy I mentioned before, Jeremy Bentham, who contributed to utilitarianism, also worked with John Stuart Mill, who was actually the inventor of neoclassical economics. And so utilitarianism was married to calculus, which was married to classical economics, which became the sort of economic theory of all of capitalism. And so that whole us-them thing that we mentioned before really fuels capitalism. And so it's hard, because maybe ethics and neoclassical economics / utilitarianism, maybe they're just not compatible. I don't go too much into that because I need money. But yeah, there's a really good point there.
Well, one more question, and then we got lots of questions all of a sudden. I like how your friend just pointed to you.
Oh, she's got a question. She's got one.
Hers one. Okay, let's go for it. Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was a more
Oh, so the question is there, can we play with the trolley problems in lots of ways. So one of your permutations would be that the person who's controlling the trolley knows the person who's going to be killed.
The single person.
The one single person, yeah.
I found the original source of the trolley problem. It was like 1946 or something. So there's been a number of permutations since then. It's been like the one person is a baby, or the one person is Mother Teresa, or the 5 people are Hitler. Like there's all kinds of variations, and it's in a trolley or a train with a train. And yeah, like in theory it would make it more difficult, but that's where you're really pushing the boundaries of whether utilitarianism is an effective morality, because should it matter who that person is if you're saving 5 others? Yeah, as I said.
Okay, one more, because you were really energetic. Yeah, go for it.
Do you think that linear thinking, the pervasiveness of linear thinking is destroying the fabric of society?
Okay, just a small question there. Is linear thinking destroying the fabric of society? And you've got 20 seconds, go.
I wouldn't say linear thinking, but certainly reductionist thinking, bringing things down to 1, which could be considered linear thinking, or bringing things down to 2, dualisms, like good and bad. Certainly reductionism, dualisms, reducing things or not considering the full complexity of any situation certainly is creating a lot of problems.
So, unfortunately, philosophy tends not to be taught as part of undergraduate programs in a lot of places now. People who have not been exposed to some of these ideas before, if they've gotten a taste for it, what would you recommend they do next if they want to continue to explore and go down this road?
Study philosophy. We need more students, please. No, just go.
Is there a great book?
Yeah, actually, there's probably a really good book.
There's a good TV series.
I'm not getting any commission for this. I should, but Alain de Botton's The Consolations of Philosophy is a really good, simple history of philosophy, and he uses philosophy to console a lot of everyday problems that we have, like being ugly or not being good in bed. Which are problems that I don't personally have, thank you very much. But certainly everyday problems like you're not having enough money and such. And philosophy really helps. So that's a good book. Consolations of Philosophy, Alain de Botton.
Wasn't he fabulous? Put your hands together for Aaron, please.